Welcome to our channel. In today's video, we're going to explore the 10 most mysterious beings in the Bible. Who are these enigmatic figures that populate the sacred scriptures, and what secrets do they hold? Get ready for a fascinating journey into the spiritual realm, where we'll discover extraordinary creatures and their intriguing interactions with the divine. From angelic beings to celestial entities, each of these characters has a unique role in the big picture of creation. We'll delve into the descriptions and symbolism surrounding these beings, exploring how their actions and appearances impact our understanding of spirituality and worship. How can we reflect on our own connections with the sacred in the light of these revelations? Don't miss the chance to expand your knowledge and curiosity. Subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and leave your like if you enjoy the content. Join us as we unravel the secrets these mysterious beings have to offer and discover what lies beyond what we can see. The 24 elders are a fascinating presence that has aroused the curiosity of many throughout time. These beings, whose identities and meanings remain shrouded in mystery, are linked to a vision of great celestial splendor. At the heart of what we might call the divine realm, there is a magnificent throne room where transcendent light and indescribable power are manifested. This space is not only a place of worship, but also the dwelling place of the most powerful entity in the universe, surrounded by an atmosphere of reverence and majesty. The account of John, who went to the island of Patmos, is one of the most intriguing accounts of the heavenly visions he received. Among his experiences, the image of the 24 elders stands out in a unique way. Dressed in white and adorned with golden crowns, they are arranged on thrones around the greatest throne, which represents the divine presence. The sight is so impressive that it's hard not to wonder about the true nature of these beings and the role they play in this cosmic scene. Throughout his spiritual journey, John went to different communities, but at a moment of transition, he was taken to witness the glory of the throne of God. Around this central throne, the 24 thrones occupied by the elders were revealed, highlighting the importance of their position in the heavenly kingdom. What makes them so special? What is their function in the grand scheme of creation? These questions lead us to a deeper exploration of the 24 elders. In one memorable passage, they prostrate themselves before the Lord, casting down their crowns and proclaiming the greatness of God. This scene reflects the reverence and adoration that permeate the heavenly environment, where everyone recognizes God's dignity as the creator of all things. Worship is not just a formality. It is a genuine expression of gratitude and recognition of the supreme power that sustains the universe. Although the sacred text does not offer a detailed description of the identities of the elders, many interpretations suggest that they represent the totality of the faithful, those who have been redeemed and now share in divine glory. Some theologians hypothesize that these beings could be angels, but this idea is not supported by an analysis of the scriptures. The elders are clearly associated with the church and the promise of a reign alongside Christ. The fact that they sit on thrones indicates a position of authority and power, reinforcing the idea that believers rule in unity with Him. The term elders used in this context is significant. It never refers to angelic beings, but rather to men who have reached spiritual maturity and are qualified to rule. The immortality of angels makes it impossible for them to be called elders, since they do not age. The white robes that adorn the elders symbolize the righteousness and purity that come from salvation in Christ, revealing the transformation that believers experience when they are redeemed. The golden crowns they wear are another relevant point. These adornments are not for angels, who do not receive crowns. Instead, the crowns symbolize the victory of those who have persevered in faith, reflecting the recognition that God gives to those who have overcome life's tribulations. In the Old Testament, crowns were often associated with overcomers, those who achieved the reward for their faithfulness and dedication to the Lord. The worship of the 24 elders is also enriched by the presence of the 4 living creatures, who stand around the throne. These creatures have the function of inspiring and motivating the elders in their unceasing worship. The interaction between the heavenly beings is a harmonious dance of praise and reverence, demonstrating the unity of heaven in glorifying God. The elders are not just there as passive figures. They play an active role in the ongoing worship, recognizing the greatness of the Creator. If we expand our vision to the wider context of the Old Testament, we notice that the presence of heavenly beings, such as angels, is recurrent. One of the most striking accounts is that of Moses, who had significant encounters with these beings during his journey through the desert. These encounters are crucial to understanding the nature of heavenly beings and their role in the interaction between the divine and humanity. The concept of wheels mentioned in Ezekiel's visions is particularly fascinating. Ezekiel, in trying to describe the wonders he saw, uses comparisons and metaphors to convey the incomprehensibility of his visions. He describes a dark cloud filled with lightning and fire, within which dwell 4 radiant beings. Ezekiel's experience shows us that what he saw was so beyond human comprehension that it was necessary to use vivid images to give an idea of what he witnessed. The wheels that Ezekiel mentions are described as having a splendid appearance, similar to gyroscopes, and are capable of moving in any direction without the need to turn. This description illustrates the perfection of divine creation, where each element moves in harmony with the others. The wheels, full of eyes, are a symbol of God's omniscience, observing and understanding all things. By contemplating the characteristics of the heavenly beings and the 24 elders, we are led to reflect on the relationship between the divine and humanity. The figure of the elders, for example, is a testimony to what it means to be part of God's family. They symbolize the continuity of salvation history, representing those who have persevered in faith and who now enjoy eternal communion with the Lord. The mystery of the 24 elders and the rich tapestry of heavenly visions invite us to delve deeper into our spirituality and seek a deeper understanding of our relationship with the sacred. As we explore these truths, we are reminded that there is a much greater reality than we can perceive in our daily lives. This call to worship and reverence inspires us to contemplate the grandeur of the universe, where divine wisdom and love are interwoven in ways that often escape our comprehension. Finally, the mystery surrounding the 24 elders and the heavenly beings urges us to seek a broader understanding of our own existence. Each of us is called to be part of this great narrative of worship and communion, reflecting on how we can live our lives in alignment with divine purposes. Since ancient times, humanity has marveled at the creatures that inhabit our planet. Among these creatures, some stand out not only for their size or strength, but also for the mystery that surrounds them. One of them is described in many ancient texts as an immense being, which feeds on vegetation like a great herbivore, possessing uncommon strength. This creature, which many try to identify, has become a symbol of both awe and fear, reflecting the duality of divine creation. Imagine a being whose mass is so great that its muscles seem to be made of iron, its skin as tough as the hardest armor, and its presence capable of inspiring awe in all who see it. It moves with a grace unexpected for its size, moving its tail as if it were a tree swaying in the wind. The description of this being evokes images of a primitive world, where the force of nature was both respected and feared. This animal, often referenced in oral and written traditions, leads humanity to question not only its nature, but also the place we occupy in the grand scheme of things. Over the centuries, many scholars have tried to decipher the enigma of its identity. Is it a hippopotamus, an elephant, or a creature we've never seen before? Opinions vary, but what is undeniable is the impact this creature has had on the narratives that have shaped the culture and religion of various peoples. The hippopotamus, for example, is one of the most discussed candidates. Known for its strength and territorial behavior, this animal is one of the most powerful in the terrestrial kingdom. In ancient times, the Egyptians revered and feared it at the same time. The hippopotamus, which bathes in rivers and swamps, is a sight that can still be found in some regions of the world today. Its impressive size and huge jaws make it a fearsome adversary, and the idea that it could have roamed these lands along with human beings brings a new dimension to our understanding. However, there are those who maintain that the description fits an elephant better. Elephants have always been seen as majestic creatures, carrying the wisdom of millennia in their gait. Their strength is unparalleled, and the relationship they establish with their family groups demonstrates complex and deeply emotional behavior. The idea that this imposing being could be an elephant raises questions about the nature of what it means to be strong and respected. In many cultures, the elephant symbolizes wisdom and power, which is in line with the reverence that ancient texts had for this creature. In addition to these interpretations, there is a figure that complements this narrative, Leviathan. This sea creature is mentioned in various traditions and is described as a terrifying and incomprehensible force. The Leviathan's ferocity is often emphasized, showing that even in the deep seas there are beings that surpass human imagination. His description is full of symbolism, representing not just an animal, but the primordial force of nature that often escapes human control. The relationship between Leviathan and the behemoth is interesting, as both creatures reveal the diversity of divine creation. While the behemoth represents the earth and its immensity, the Leviathan symbolizes the depths of the seas and the power that resides there. Together, these creatures illustrate the idea that creation is rich and multifaceted, full of beings that play unique roles in the balance of the world. Each one, in its own way, reminds us of the magnitude of the universe and the power of its creator. These creatures, although distinct, have one thing in common. They are manifestations of divine greatness. In describing the behemoth and the Leviathan, the ancient texts are not only cataloging the fauna of the world, but also offering us an insight into our own condition. Through these creatures, we are invited to reflect on our position in the cosmos, on the fragility of life and the greatness that exists outside of us. Human beings, in their incessant search for knowledge and understanding, often find themselves in a dilemma. On the one hand, we want to master nature, understand its mysteries, and control it. On the other, we are reminded of our limitation and the power that lies beyond our comprehension. This duality is at the heart of the narrative surrounding these creatures. When we consider the size and strength of the behemoth and Leviathan, we are led to recognize that there are forces in our world that are far beyond our control. Furthermore, this reflection leads us to ponder the role of the Creator. If we are only creatures within a vast universe, what is our responsibility towards what has been created? These texts challenge us to be humble, to recognize that we are not the protagonists of our own story, but part of a much larger tapestry, interwoven with life, strength, and mystery. In many traditions, the idea of humility is central. God's greatness is often emphasized so that humanity doesn't forget its place. When we consider the descriptions of Leviathan and the behemoth, we realize that we shouldn't exalt ourselves. Pride and self-importance are comparable to the insignificance of a grain of sand before the vast ocean. What are we but a small part of a creation that includes such magnificent beings? Nature, in all its diversity and complexity, serves as a constant reminder that life is precious and that we must take care of the world around us. The creatures that inhabit our planet, as fearsome as they may seem, are also part of this grand design. They play crucial roles in their ecosystems, and our interaction with them should be marked by respect and admiration. So when we look at these mythical and grandiose figures, we are invited to consider the wonder of creation. We must remember that even in our fragility, we are capable of perceiving and appreciating the beauty and complexity of the world. This appreciation should not lead us to despair, but to gratitude. Gratitude connects us with the divine and encourages us to live in harmony with everything around us. In ancient times, fishermen and sailors often referred to a feared creature, known for its menacing appearance and terrifying behavior. This entity, often evoked in stories, symbolizes the deep fear that the unknown can cause. Likewise, one man in particular expressed his discontent with the day of his birth, filled with intense emotions and despair. Generally, this creature is considered a sea monster, almost like a dragon that terrorizes those who sail the high seas. However, when we look at a specific account, we realize that the perspective on this being is different. Some people suggest that it could be a primitive dinosaur that survived until this man's time, or a figure that has become part of humanity's collective memory, serving as a reference to the power of the Creator. Others, however, believe that this creature is simply a colossal crocodile. The intention behind the description of this being is clear: to demonstrate man's powerlessness in the face of forces far beyond his control. There is no way he can face this powerful creature, and this reality is an invitation to reflect on human vulnerability. This relationship highlights that, like man, there are beings who inhabit the world and play a significant role in the natural order. In addition, there is a class of beings known as the heavenly guardians. These beings, mentioned in various traditions, are considered to be the first in the angelic hierarchy, having appeared shortly after humans fell. Into their transgressions. Ancient records tell of how these beings were assigned to protect and watch over, reminding humans of their faults. After disobeying a clear order, man was expelled from his original home, and the guardians were placed as sentinels to prevent his return. This protection was intended to ensure that the transgression was not repeated, maintaining order and justice. From this context, we understand that the responsibility of these beings is to guard the path and ensure that the divine presence is not violated. As much as man wanted to return to that state of grace, the guardians always reminded him of his disobedience. A specific religious leader was allowed to approach the most sacred place in an annual ritual, where his own awareness of sin made him feel unworthy. This reality highlights the seriousness of the relationship between humanity and the divine. These beings are not merely symbolic. They play a fundamental role in the narrative and in the divine plan. They were present in sacred constructions, symbolizing the connection between the human and the celestial. In prophetic visions, they are depicted in impressive ways, with multiple faces and complex movements, underlining the multifaceted nature of what they represent. In addition to their protective function, these beings also ensure that access to the sacred is done correctly and with a clear purpose. Thus, they do not exclude those who seek a genuine relationship, but reinforce the need for a mediator who can intercede. This reminds us that, through an act of sacrifice, everyone has the opportunity to approach the divine. The figure of a radiant being, which is mentioned in various contexts, is a representation of light and illumination. This being is described as magnificent, resplendent, and endowed with great beauty, symbolizing the search for truth and understanding. The way he is presented in the traditions emphasizes the duality between light and darkness, as well as the importance of the search for knowledge. Finally, an enigmatic character, whose presence in the story is full of mystery, appears in the narrative. This being, who appeared at a significant time, bears a name that reflects not only his identity, but also his role in history. Names in ancient traditions have a profound weight. They are not merely identifiers, but bearers of meaning and authority. The interpretation of a being's name reveals its connection to justice and righteousness, fundamental characteristics that define its nature. The relationship between name and identity is essential, as it reflects the importance of each character in the larger narrative we are exploring. Each name carries with it the responsibility of fulfilling a specific role within the sacred story, whether representing virtues or warnings. In this way, the stories about these creatures and figures invite us to reflect on our own lives and responsibilities. They teach us that in the face of powerful forces and the complexity of the world, we need to be humble and seek a deeper understanding of our existence and our place in the universe. In this way, we continue to explore the lessons that antiquity has left us, inspiring us to live according to principles that are eternally relevant. The character Melchizedek is often associated with justice and righteousness in his domain. Just as Melchizedek is recognized as the King of Peace, Jesus is also said to hold this same title. In predictions about a future Messiah, it is stated that he would be a ruler of peace. The first significant mention of Melchizedek is found in ancient accounts, where he offers bread and wine to an important patriarch, demonstrating his role as priest of the Most High God. This entity is identified as the one true God, the Most High, to whom Abraham paid reverence. He ruled over all the gods, being the figure before whom even the other divine beings had to submit. Melchizedek's priesthood predates that of the Levites, and he blessed Abraham, recognizing that it was the Most High God who gave Abraham the strength to overcome his enemies. The order and mystery surrounding Melchizedek are used to explain the figure of Jesus, who is eternal and has no beginning or end. A fascinating feature of Melchizedek is that his origin and destiny are never mentioned. His priesthood is described as perpetual, lasting throughout the ages. In the New Testament texts, Melchizedek is mentioned in an epistle that compares his priesthood to that of Jesus. In this work, it is emphasized that Jesus entered as our forerunner, becoming the eternal high priest, according to the order of Melchizedek. This text details aspects about Melchizedek that are not found elsewhere. He meets Abraham after he has won a battle, and Melchizedek blesses him. Abraham, recognizing his authority, offers him a tenth of the spoils of victory. The name Melchizedek, which means King of Righteousness, is emblematic, as is his title of King of Salem, which translates as King of Peace. The narrative tells us that Melchizedek had no genealogy, no beginning of life or end, which makes him resemble a divine figure. Reflecting on Melchizedek's greatness, we see that even a patriarch like Abraham bowed down to him and offered him tribute. This demonstrates Melchizedek's importance in the spiritual hierarchy. His lack of ancestry and his comparison with a divine figure highlight his uniqueness and importance. The city that Melchizedek represents is known as the City of Peace, a concept that relates to the work of Jesus, who brought true peace to hearts. Abraham recognized Melchizedek's priesthood by presenting him with a portion of his possessions, indicating that he understood the importance of this priesthood that would be reflected in future religious traditions. Another relevant concept is the angel of death. Although many are familiar with this figure, it is essential to make a distinction. This narrative goes back to a period of great affliction, when plagues were sent upon a kingdom that opposed the freedom of an oppressed people. The last plague was particularly devastating, affecting all the firstborn of both the noble and the lowly, causing unprecedented mourning. Instructions were given for the people to prepare, seeking supplies for the journey ahead. A leader approached the king seeking deliverance, culminating in a series of events that would shape the history of that people. The people's journey was marked by divine interventions that would guarantee their protection and their future. Thus, by exploring these stories, we understand the depth of the themes of justice, redemption, and the struggle between oppressors and oppressed, always under the supervision of a greater force. The lessons drawn from these narratives continue to resonate in our day, inviting us to reflect on our own lives and the role we play in the world. On one particular dark and tense night, marked by the fear of what was to come, families gathered in their homes, aware that this would be the night of judgment. The atmosphere was full of expectation, and many felt a tightness in their hearts. What would happen next would not only change the fate of many, but also reveal the importance of decisions made with faith and courage. A charismatic leader had emerged in the community, bringing a powerful message of hope and liberation. He spoke with conviction, urging people to believe in something greater, to trust in a plan that promised to free them from the suffering they had faced for so long. He urged the inhabitants to get ready, to mark their entrances with a sign of protection, an act that required courage and faith. As night approached, the instructions were strictly followed. The families who believed in the message gathered together and took precautions, knowing that what was to come would not be a simple change, but a decisive event that would separate those who trusted from those who remained in doubt. However, there were those who were skeptical. Some people questioned the need to prepare and laughed at the warnings. "Nothing will happen," they said scornfully. These words, however, rang hollow in the face of the seriousness of the situation. The division between those who were ready and those who weren't was clear. As midnight approached, the tension grew. The streets were silent, but the expectation of something great and terrifying was in every heart. In the midst of the fear, those who had prepared themselves found a kind of tranquility that the others could not understand. They trusted that their obedience would be rewarded. On that night of judgment, what happened was devastating. The dawn brought with it a wave of despair for those who had ignored the signs. A tragedy befell the city, and weeping overtook the houses that were not protected. Meanwhile, in the homes where people had followed the instructions with faith, there was an inexplicable calm, as if an invisible barrier kept them safe from what was happening outside. The cries of pain and despair echoed through the city, a collective lamentation that reflected the intensity of the loss. Many families were crying for their loved ones, and the scene was heartbreaking. The difference between those who had believed and those who hadn't was becoming increasingly clear. Those who had prepared, who had made the decision to follow the proposed plan, were in a state of preservation, protected by their choices. What unfolded that night was not just a matter of luck. It was a direct consequence of faith and obedience. The lessons became clear. Protection and salvation were within everyone's reach, but they depended on a willingness to act courageously. Fear and doubt had led many to a disastrous choice. Those who resisted and doubted were faced with a reality they could no longer ignore. Desolation surrounded them, and the weight of their choices became unbearable. As the lamentations spread, the sun began to rise, bringing a new light, a light that illuminated not only the city, but also the truth about what it means to choose the path of faith in times of uncertainty. Amidst the pain, there was a thread of hope. Those who were protected not only survived the calamity, but also became a testimony to the power of belief and solidarity. The night of judgment, which brought destruction to many, also ignited a flame of renewal and unity among those who had stood firm in their faith. With the new day, the lessons began to spread. The stories of courage and protection became tales that would be passed down from generation to generation. The children heard about that night, learning about the importance of trusting and acting on one's convictions, even when the situation seemed hopeless. The city, marked by pain and regret, began to rebuild. What had once been a place of fear and oppression now became a space of hope and renewal. The people who came together to protect themselves were determined to create a new future. They learned that faith, when accompanied by action, can transform realities and bring peace in the midst of the storm. Over time, the story of that night of judgment became a landmark in the community's collective memory. The inhabitants came together to celebrate not only their survival, but the strength they found in each other. The event that could have been a mere tragedy became a catalyst for change, leading people to reflect on their lives and their choices. Conversations in the squares, whispers between friends in classes and schools, were permeated by the spirit of togetherness that emerged from that experience. People began to look at each other with more compassion and understanding, recognizing that everyone faced their own struggles. The pain of loss had become a unifying force, encouraging everyone to support each other. In the midst of all this, a new leader emerged, a bearer of the message of hope and rebuilding. He urged people not just to remember the tragedy, but to use it as an impetus to act and transform their lives. The lessons learned on that fateful night became the foundation for a brighter future, where the community would unite in pursuit of a greater purpose. The marks of that night have never been erased, but have become a constant reminder of the importance of preparation and faith. The families continued to celebrate their protection, perpetuating the stories of courage and unity. Those experiences taught them that life is full of uncertainties, but that trust in a greater plan could guide them through the most intense storms. The city became an example of resilience. The collective strength of the community became increasingly evident as new traditions emerged, celebrating courage and faith. The memory of that night of judgment became a symbol of hope and determination, showing that even in the darkest hours, the light of faith could shine brightly. So the story of that night was not just about destruction, but about rebirth. Through pain and loss, a new sense of purpose and unity was forged, leaving a legacy that would last for generations. People learned to value their choices and support each other, creating a stronger, more supportive community. And so the narrative of protection and consequence unfolded, echoing through time, inspiring those who sought a way forward in the midst of uncertainty. The true strength of faith and unity became the pillars that supported the city, reminding everyone that even in the darkest nights, there is always a possibility of hope. The challenges didn't disappear, but the community was now equipped to face them. The spirit of collaboration and the strength of faith became the new normal. The connection between people deepened, and new leadership emerged, all united by a greater cause, that of creating an environment where hope could flourish. The Night of Judgment was not just an isolated event. It was a watershed that redefined the city's identity. With each story told, the memory of that night became a beacon of light, guiding future generations in their choices. The lessons of faith and action would continue to resonate, helping everyone to understand the value of their decisions in times of uncertainty. And so the city not only survived that terrible night, but also became a shining example of resilience and hope. The strength that emerged from the pain became a testament to the human capacity to unite and overcome adversity. The memories of the Night of Judgment, far from being a burden, became a reminder of the greatness of the human spirit. In the end, each inhabitant of the city, aware of their history, was a bearer of this message of hope. They walked together, knowing that even on the darkest nights, the light of faith and unity would always guide them towards a new dawn. On that fateful night, tragedy struck the city. A heavenly messenger was sent, and destruction was about to happen. The people were distressed, and the atmosphere was filled with despair. Many lives were lost, and the pain was palpable. Faced with this devastating scenario, one leader, in his desperation, turned to divinity, acknowledging his failings and begging for mercy. At that moment, the figure of the messenger, who had stretched out his hand to cause the calamity, stood still, hesitating, while the voice of compassion echoed. A request for intervention was made, and the messenger, in response, halted the destruction. This intervention was a reflection of mercy in the midst of chaos. Tales of celestial beings, such as those surrounding the divine throne, have always captured the imagination and reverence of mortals. These beings are often described as fiery and majestic, always ready to praise and serve. They symbolize purity and devotion, always present, worshiping fervently. One of the prophets, in an intense vision, described the glory of this heavenly assembly. He saw an imposing throne, and around it, beings of great splendor, each with multiple wings covering their faces and feet, as they flew with grace. The description of these beings reveals their nature, not just as angels, but as entities that emit light and reflect the greatness of the divine. These beings have a clear function. They are instruments of purification and messengers of truth. In a symbolic act, one of them brought a burning coal to purify the prophet's mouth, signaling the removal of guilt and preparation for a new mission. The image of heavenly beings prostrating themselves before the Most High is a powerful reminder of the humility required before the sacred. This act of reverence should not be underestimated. The messenger's closeness to the divine teaches us about the importance of purity and devotion. Recognizing the greatness of what lies beyond us should inspire us to approach spirituality with seriousness and respect, remembering that our own shortcomings cannot be ignored. The vision of a prophet seeking forgiveness echoes throughout the spiritual tradition. The feeling of unworthiness before the presence of the divine is a universal experience. When confronted with purity, many see themselves in their weakness and seek redemption. This quest for purification is a recurring theme, representing the ongoing struggle between light and darkness. In the trajectory of humanity, the forces that seek to influence people's lives are innumerable. Evil beings also exist and take advantage of human weaknesses. Contact with the occult can open dangerous doors, attracting what is not visible, but which influences decisions and behavior. This reality shows that what seems harmless can actually be a path to perdition. The phenomenon of possession is a clear example of how external forces can take control of a human being. The battle between light and darkness is reflected in this internal struggle, where the true nature of the individual can be obscured. What many don't realize is that behind the experiences that seem real, there are entities with personalities of their own, ready to influence and manipulate. This aspect of the spiritual struggle should be approached with caution and discernment. The search for mystical experiences or involvement in dubious practices often results in devastating consequences. What many consider to be just a game can turn into a real battle for the soul. Dark beings look for spaces to act, just as a vandal looks for an opportunity to cause destruction. The appeal to human curiosity is strong, but wisdom lies in recognizing the dangers that can arise from reckless interactions with the unknown. True protection comes from a deep understanding of the forces at play and the pursuit of a life aligned with principles of light and truth. Thus, reflection on these issues is not just academic, but essential for everyday life. The choices we make have consequences, and the search for connection with the divine must be grounded in respect and discernment. In the end, true transformation comes from the search for purification, the rejection of what does not edify, and the acceptance of an enlightened path. Every experience, good or bad, contributes to the formation of our character and spirituality. Stories of redemption and downfall are an intrinsic part of the human journey. The search for light in the midst of darkness is a theme that resonates in every heart, reminding us that true strength lies in the ability to choose the good, even in the face of temptation. Therefore, by reflecting on the greatness and fragility of existence, we are invited to seek a greater purpose, to honor the light that dwells within us, and to embrace the journey with courage and humility. This search is what connects us, as humanity, to the divine force that transcends all circumstances. As we walk through this life, it is crucial to remember that every step we take must be accompanied by intention. Our choices shape not only our destiny, but also that of those around us. Reverence before the sacred should guide us in every decision, reminding us of the responsibility we have in our interactions and the impact we have on the world. May we thus live wisely, always choosing the path of light and truth, and always seeking the purification of our souls. The legacy we leave behind is the true measure of what it means to be human. In a scenario of spiritual conflict, the human body is often seen as a tool that evil forces can use to attack the sacred. Dark beings, in their rejection of the divine image present in humanity, seek to disfigure it, turning individuals into distorted reflections of what they were created to be. The goal of these entities is to destroy the image of God reflected in people, including the faithful. However, their strategies are limited to those who follow the path of light. The power that was gained through the spiritual leader's redemptive work on the cross disarms these evil spirits, although they can try to deceive believers, trapping them in the web of unbelief. The forces of evil do not have the same freedom they had before. These beings are not just impersonal forces, they have identity and character. When confronted, they express themselves and interact, revealing a degree of intelligence and will. On one occasion, a spiritual leader asked one of these beings a direct question, seeking to understand the extent of the problem, since the man was possessed by multiple entities. It is important to note that the evil being's response was not just a name, but a declaration of its intimidating and threatening nature. The communication between them demonstrated personality. The evil being spoke and begged for their freedom, asking not to be sent to a place of imprisonment described in ancient texts. They feared confinement and pleaded for an alternative, demonstrating that even in their evil, they retained an awareness of their condition. These evil beings not only recognize the authority of the spiritual leader, but are also aware of others who have a strong spiritual connection, such as an apostle who was carrying out a deliverance ministry. Dark beings have the ability to use information about humans, using this knowledge to manipulate and deceive. These beings are incorporeal entities, completely devoid of physical form, belonging to the spiritual realm. Their presence is perceived through the difficulties and conflicts they cause. Some are more evil than others, and there are different degrees of evil. At a decisive moment, a spiritual leader demonstrated his power by expelling one of these evil beings, freeing those under its influence, and recovering what had been stolen. One particularly remarkable being, known for his beauty and splendor, was a figure who at some point challenged the authority of the divine. This being, who was once revered, fell into disgrace due to his pride. The fall of this being from the heavenly realm symbolizes the constant struggle between good and evil, and his desire to usurp the place of the divine stemmed from unbridled pride. This was the sin that led to his destruction. Pride, the same sin that led to the fall of this being, is often ignored in religious communities. Many people would never consider engaging in behavior that is considered morally wrong, but they are often seduced by arrogance, without realizing how devastating this attitude can be. This being, who stood out for her beauty and abilities, ended up becoming a symbol of what happens when gifts given by the divine are corrupted by a misguided attitude. The sad reality is that many who are called and empowered for great purposes can still repeat the same mistake that led to this being's downfall. Analyzing the reasons behind this rebellion, we see that the desire to equal the divine was the motivation behind this transformation. He considered himself so great that he began to believe he could take the place that didn't belong to him. According to reports, he managed to persuade a significant number of celestial beings to join him in his rebellion, dragging them towards his downfall. Experts in spiritual traditions generally agree that this being had a special role in heaven, orchestrating worship and music. His musical ability was transformed into a tool of seduction and deception, which continues to influence many to this day. Thus, the story of this being offers us profound lessons about the pitfalls of pride and the importance of maintaining a posture of humility before the divine. The legacy of his fall serves as a warning to us all, reminding us that true greatness comes from a willingness to serve and not from an ambition to usurp. In short, while the forces of darkness seek to corrupt the image of the divine in humanity, it is vital that human beings remember their sacred identity. Recognizing who we really are and the purpose we have been given can protect us from the seductions of pride and deceit. Everyone's journey is a call to vigilance, humility, and the constant search for truth. In the heavenly kingdom, there was a being who was responsible for leading the worship activities. He was a guardian, taking care of the place where the divine presence manifested itself, and he was also a great musician, an admired artist. However, his ascension led to pride, and this sovereignty became his downfall. Thus, he was banished from the divine presence after getting carried away by his own beauty and intelligence, and by conspiring against the Creator, his followers were also expelled. This being, who stood out for his wisdom and splendor, ended up allowing vanity to dominate his heart. His fall originated from within himself, and before his downfall, he launched an attack on humanity. His hatred for us ran deep, and this was for two main reasons. Firstly, because the human being is the visible representation of the Creator, and secondly, because he couldn't attack God directly, but sought to deface his image reflected in us. His goal was to desecrate this image, to destroy the essence of the human being, not only physically, but also in his moral and spiritual character. The antagonist has a special contempt for Christians, because through them the divine image is restored and shines out into the world. His tactics consist of trying to lead Christians astray and corrupt them, seeking to weaken their faith and damage their witness. In the face of rebellion, the Creator did not remain inert. He sent a perfect manifestation of his essence to redeem and restore humanity. Through the life, death, and resurrection of this messenger, we have the opportunity to be transformed to reflect this divine image. This transformation is an ongoing process in the spiritual journey, where we are gradually molded into the likeness of this being. As we surrender to the guidance of the Spirit and follow the teachings of this messenger, the image of the Creator becomes clearer and brighter in a world that desperately needs light and truth. The adversary, aware that he cannot reach God, directs his anger and deceit against humanity, trying to divert people from the truth. However, the final victory belongs to the Creator. Through the sacrifice of this messenger, the adversary has been defeated, and all who put their faith in him have the promise of eternal life and the complete restoration of the divine image. This spiritual conflict between good and evil, between the Creator and the adversary, is a central theme in the narrative of faith. It reminds us of the importance of maintaining our fidelity to the Creator and resisting the temptations and deceptions of the enemy, knowing that in our faith we find victory and the promise of a glorious future. I invite you to share your opinion in the comments. If this content has been meaningful to you, I appreciate your support by subscribing, liking, and clicking on one of the videos that will appear, so that together we can enlighten more minds and expand our understanding. Thank you for your presence, and may the light guide your path.